I'd like to welcome everybody for being here tonight. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Sharon Smead, and Mayville is my home. I care about our community and assume you do also, otherwise you wouldn't be here to listen to this presentation. We all know the challenges we face in this area, but we also know that many small communities like Mayville have overcome their problems and are thriving. So what are they doing, and how are they doing it? One answer is Community Heart and Soul, a program developed by the Orton Family Foundation. This is a process that has been used successfully nationwide to revitalize small communities. It is not something that happens overnight, but with patience, participation, and support from the residents, businesses, and local officials using this model, we can make amazing improvements. We currently have a small team of people that have already begun to work on this process. However, we will involve everyone in the community, from their stories determine what matters most, and then plans will be made to play the long game. I believe in Mayville, I believe in this program, and if we all pitch in, Mayville can again be the thriving community it once was. There is such tremendous potential here. All we have to do is tap into it. After all, it is our home, and don't we want it to be the best it can be for us, our families and friends, and the future? I would like to introduce two women who have graciously accepted our invitation to join us and explain Community Heart and Soul and their experiences to you. They are Leanne Tingay. She's from the Orton Family Foundation. She has traveled here from Vermont, the home base of the foundation. And Autumn Vogel, who is from Meadville, Pennsylvania, a community that is just completing the program. So, here we go.
Debbie Moreno. I am the coordinator of the Galesburg On Track. Our turnout today is tremendous. Giving people the opportunity to voice their ideas has been really critical to our process. From these conversations, we get a sense of what the community values as a whole.
My name is John Pritchard. I'm mayor of Galesburg, Illinois. Galesburg, like many Midwestern Rust Belt communities, have had significant changes in their economy. One of the things I thought Heart and Soul could do was focus on the future and not the past.
75% of economic development comes from the way we feel about our community. That's what this process is doing. This is reminding us of why Galesburg is such a good place, and it's making us feel good about our home. That's fantastic.
My name is Brittany Grimes. I am on the leadership team here with the Heart and Soul, or Galesburg On Track. I love this community. I want to see it get better. I want to see, once again, everyone's voice heard. And I don't want anyone to feel diminished. I want everyone to have a seat at the table. And so that's really why I decided to be a part of the Heart and Soul process.
This was a big eye-opener, I think, for people to say, gosh, we really can. We got a good group of people here. People want to be involved. I think there was a sense at the end of the day, you can almost sense it, that people are wanting to clap and say, hey, this was really cool, this really worked, and we haven't been a part of anything like this.
They said that Galesburg is waiting for something, and I think that was probably the best way to sum up a lot of what's going on. Galesburg is waiting for something, so I'm hopeful that this is it.
Hi, my name is Leanne Tingay, and I'm with the Orton Family Foundation. And also, give another wave out here, I have with me Autumn Vogel. She just, perfect timing, she had just took a sip of water. And she is one of the people that I worked with out in Pennsylvania. Her community is Meadville, as you heard, and the project was My Meadville. So just like what you saw up there on the video, they went through a lot of these things. So our program for our foundation is known as Heart and Soul. No one pays for me to come. All of our technical assistance is completely free. All of our materials are completely free. We have a great many on our website. Download it, use it, so forth. That is our gift. That is our mission. That is our philanthropy, is giving communities, hopefully, tools that you're going to find out for yourself, by yourself, what matters most. And when you find out what matters most, you utilize that to build on everything from your municipal comp plans, economic development plans, how nonprofits can work better together, what do we need to do to make our schools better, what do we need to do to make our community better. Moving on. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about, what's on the menu for tonight is what is community heart and soul? What are the principles behind heart and soul and kind of putting them in practice? Stories to action, success stories, partly why the lovely and talented Autumn is here, and what resources that we have for you. Okay, moving on. How do you keep somewhere from being anywhere? I don't know if you've ever visited maybe even a big city, and when you look around, if someone didn't tell you where you were, it could be anywhere, right? And what we have found, especially with small towns, is that there is something wonderful and unique about every community. And the ones that know it are the people that have lived there. And there's wonderful stories that come out from that. And what we do through our program is teach you not just to tell your stories, but to also figure out how you pull the data out of that story in order to find out what matters most, what are your hopes, what are your concerns, and so forth. And from that, you're going to find out what makes Mayville special. What are the things that make it unique, and what are the things that we're going to build on to the future? Kind of like do no harm to these things. Gentleman in the middle is a guy named Lyman Orton. Orton Family Foundation, okay. Anybody here ever hear of the Vermont Country Store? Awesome, I love it, he'll be thrilled. This is where our funding, if you will, is a direct offshoot of the Vermont Country Store. And Lyman is the one that really founded it and has actually taken it to a national corporation. And the very first country store started in a very teeny tiny town called Weston, and it's in the central part of Vermont. And he was asked to be on the planning commission. And what he really found that really upset him was all kinds of decisions that were being made by the planning commission that were going to be affecting people for decades, and yet they didn't really talk to the people of Weston. One example that I love was there was this developer that came to Little Weston, Vermont, and what he wanted to do was put in a wild animal park. True story, I am not kidding you. Yeah, because that's why people come to Vermont, so they can see zebras and tigers. Really? I thought it was like skiing and cheese, but all right, call me crazy. Maybe maple syrup. Anyway, so this developer comes in, and he's telling the planning commission all these great things that are going to happen in the community, and jobs and tourism, and this is the greatest thing since they put beer in a can. And what happened is the community completely got divided. They were the ones that were for this project, and there was a whole bunch of folks that were against the project. Well, the commission passed it. They had to make some land use change ordinances. It was built, and within 6 months, the whole thing went bankrupt. And it was gone. And as Lyman says, the scars on the mountain healed faster than the scars in the community. To this day, there are people in Weston, and this happened over a decade ago, but there's still people in Weston that it's like, you were for this project, so I hate you, I hate your family, I hate your dog, and I'm never gonna like you. Anything like that ever happen in Mayville? Ever? Okay. That's just part of our nature, I guess. But what we try to do with Heart and Soul instead is figure out what are the things that instead, there we go. What are the things instead that we value? We keep the narrative positive, just like they did here in Gardner, Maine. Let's talk about what we love. So in this particular case, there was a window that a property owner allowed people to use that paint, and the question was, what do you love about Gardner? And people wrote it down, and people walked by and read it, and started saying to themselves, yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot how good this town is. And that's kind of the secret in the sauce. I'm going to also tell you a story about Biddeford, Maine. They were one of our pilot communities. And Biddeford, as you can see, is down in, they actually call that down east in Maine, and it's a wonderful little community, and not far from Portland. No, I got to do it that way. Has a wonderful historic background, and the main thing that was Biddeford 100 years ago or more was the mills. And they sit right on the Kennebec River, and they used to have all kinds of manufacturing going on, particularly clothing, cloth, all of that, right? And what happened is a lot of that moved down south, and now we know a lot of that's moving overseas. And it left a lot of empty mill space, and we saw jobs leave out of Biddeford, right? Now, I don't know how desperate you gotta be for jobs that you think that having a trash incinerator plant right in the middle of your downtown that's stinky and smelly and awful is really a good idea, but that's what Biddeford did. And not only are they burning their trash in this incinerator plant, they're hauling garbage in from other communities to be burned. So you got garbage trucks with dirty, smelly garbage coming in to be burned, right? Yeah. Okay, heart and soul. We focus on 3 basic principles. It is involve everyone, focus on what matters most to you guys, and play the long game. This is not something that you're gonna do for the short term. These are things that you're gonna, this data that you're gonna find is going to be affecting plans for a very long time, and that's good. You don't wanna do this just to be a flash in a pan. This is something that you're gonna play the long game with. It's a 4-phased process. First phase, just laying the groundwork. This is this kind of thing that we're doing now, letting people know what's going on, how is it affecting, how can you help, and kind of strategizing what's next. Phase 2 is really fun. We call it the story gathering, listening, and sharing phase. And you're gonna see in a minute what that is. But what's great is as these stories get shared, there's a sense of pride that comes back into the community that may have been lost for a while. Phase 3, that's when you're taking all of this data that you have discovered, and how do we create action plans as a result of it? And phase 4 is basically get her done. Start working on those plans. How many times is this how decisions get made in Mayville? You have maybe public notices, you might have meetings with city council or town council or village council. There's probably plans back on the town or village council municipal offices, probably good plans, but they never got implemented, right? I have gone into communities, seen town plans that go back to the 70s, and you go, wow, there were some really good ideas here. Why didn't they ever get implemented? And finally, you know, places that you look at and say, we need to be doing something about this, but you're not quite sure how you go about doing it. You know, my favorite is and I hope I don't offend anybody by this when I say it, but 3 minutes at the microphone is not really gonna solve a lot of issues that are dividing a community. I remember being in a public meeting in Cincinnati, and the city council had decided that they needed to raise taxes and cut services. So trust me, there was nothing but happy people in that audience. And you just knew that 3 minutes at the microphone wasn't going to solve anything. So how do you start looking at getting your good ideas to the people that can help make it happen. Okay, folks, this is no longer a trash can. This is an idea bucket, okay? This is the community idea bucket. Randomly placed. Everybody got a piece of paper, right? Show me your piece of paper. Come on. Show it to me. Ah, good. All right, I want you to crumple it up. Crumple it up. Go ahead. Don't be afraid. That represents your good idea for Mayville, okay? From where you are seated in this room, every single one of you, where you're seated, get your idea into the idea bucket. Ready, get set, go. Awesome. Okay. All right, that's good. Enough with the ideas. Good. For those who got your ideas in the idea bucket, how'd that feel? Good. Yeah, I felt good. Okay, for those who did not get your idea into the idea bucket, was it a little frustrating? Okay, for those who were on the outer end of the room, did you even do it? Because sometimes you're probably sitting, this is really stupid, and I'm not even gonna try, okay? When you're having a public meeting and some people that don't show up, they may be saying to themselves, why should I bother even showing up, okay? Those of you, I think I heard over here, well, there wasn't a chance. I'm sitting here, and I didn't even get a chance. I mean, there's, it's a little frustrating, right? That's what Heart and Soul is. And where you sat here in this room is as random as how people sit in your community. Their proximity to the idea bucket can have everything to do with race, ethnicity, income, education level, access to transportation, even something as simple as they're a single mom living paycheck to paycheck. Because here's my question. For those who are elected officials, you don't have to raise your hand, and you decide you're going to have a public meeting of some sort. And you're probably going to do it, in the evening, 7 o'clock. That should be a time for people to be able to come out to something. I'm going to ask you, the single mom living paycheck to paycheck, have you thought about her coming out to a public meeting? She's got a 3-year-old. Do you really want her to bring the 3-year-old? She's living paycheck to paycheck. Is she going to hire a babysitter? Probably not. So if you really, really do want to hear from that missing voice, and that's what we're all about, hidden and missing voices, what if instead you ask the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Key Club at the high school, and set up kind of like a little activity room, and they can watch the kids, maybe throw some pizza at them, so now parents could come, their kids are able to be safe and in a room, maybe even get dinner, and now they can participate in a meeting. Now you've just knocked down all those barriers. What about people who are not able to come because they don't have access to public transportation? How do you get with them? How do you get their opinions? So that's what Heart and Soul is about. We're trying to break down those barriers. And just like I demonstrated, instead it's not who's at the table, it's where do we need to move the table so that we can hear from more people, so that we break down some of those barriers. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Moving on. What happens is one of the first steps, we ask you to look at who's in your community. Is it young families? Is it perhaps farmers or people that are agriculture? Is there seniors? Is there youth? Is there military? Is there families? Who's in your community? One of the things that I'll challenge you to do is if you're still working, being retired is really what I want to be when I grow up. But if you're still working and you have your regular route to work, take a different route. Are you seeing a different side of your community? Are you seeing neighborhoods you've never seen before and looking at people that you may not encounter in your social circle? I don't care if you think I have lived in this town since God made dirt. You know what? You still don't know everyone. And what we try to get you to do is look at your community and figure out who does live here and how do we reach them, who are our missing and our hidden voices. So we call it a community network analysis. And this is just one example that we kind of put together. But it's also, how do those different groups, whether they're something like this, where you're talking about different organizations, how do they connect with each other? But also, how do different groups, different demographics, if you will, to use a fancy schmancy term, connect to each other? You know, you may say, okay, we got millennials in town, and we have young families. Okay, they kind of connect. How can they connect more? Maybe it's through church, maybe it's through school. How do we connect all these networks so that we know how to get to these people and start talking to them? Okay? So that's going to be one of the first steps that's going to happen during phase 1. Oh, there we go. Now, we're going to be jumping into some storytelling. Well, as I said, that's kind of the basis of Heart and Soul, is everybody has a story. And I love a quote from the author, Brené Brown. What if stories are just data, but with soul? And that's how we feel, that there is a ton of information when you ask somebody some certain questions, get their feeling, but we're doing it in a positive way. Okay, let's talk data here first. And this is how we look at it with Heart and Soul. There is thick data and thin data, and I'll explain the difference in a little bit. And when we're looking at going to talk to people, the efforts are going to be both intentional and broad. There's times when the Heart and Soul effort may be at an event, have a big board like you've seen in some of the shots already, with a singular question. What do you love about Mayville? In Galesburg, the community that you saw on the video in the beginning, they did one that was, what's fun and free to do in Galesburg? And that board was filled with ideas that they actually created cards that said, this is the top 100 things fun and free to do in Galesburg, Illinois. And that was now at the Chamber of Commerce. Realtors had them. It just gets out into the community, because there's times when we have to remind ourselves when we're saying, well, there's nothing to do in this town. Yeah, there actually is. So you're also going to be gathering these stories, but you're going to be sharing them, okay? And we're going to do a little demo on that here in just a minute. And it's storytelling, but it's also story listening. What we mean by story listening is, how do you pull that data out? And it's a way that you all are going to do that. It's not like somebody from the outside is going to come in and analyze it. You know, take all that data, go in the back room, mix it up, come back. Okay, this is what we... No, you're going to do it yourself. This whole thing has to be really transparent. There's nothing to hide, because it's all about you, and it's all about kind of the journey. So, thin data. This is from the North Fork Valley in Colorado. And as we were talking about earlier, there's the community network analysis, and you're going to be looking at who's in your community. And you're going to be trying to get the stories from a number of different demographics, right? Well, the North Fork Valley was having trouble connecting with 20-somethings. So I know this is going to be like really shocking to you, but you know where you can find a lot of 20-somethings? In places that serve adult beverages. Go figure, huh? And this place in Peonia, Colorado, had a microbrew. And the guy who owned the microbrew, his last name was Lovett. And he was introducing a new beer, craft beer, and it was entitled Love It or Leave It. Well, he was part of the Heart and Soul effort, and the people said, this is great. This is what we're going to do in connection to the promotion of this new beer. They created beer coasters. These are just, or drink coasters. They're just plain Jane drink coasters. They have a question on the front. What do you love about the North Fork Valley, and what would you leave? You know, love it or leave it? Love it, right? Get it? Uh-huh. and people wrote their answers on the back. And then they started posting them up on a corkboard so that people could see what were people saying about the North Fork Valley. What did they love, and what was it that was perhaps one thing that they would like to change? There isn't a whole big, long lot of room there, so you're going to be pretty succinct. That's why it's considered thin data. You couldn't ask additional questions. It's just a way of recording the initial thoughts of people, okay? And oh, by the way, you can steal this idea. Lots of communities have. And they've done it in different forms. I've seen it where it was, those like paper placemats that you see in restaurants, restaurants using them, asking and having people draw, write their answers down and so forth, and collecting that information. This is also Biddeford. They did story circles and had people come in and they asked them questions similar to what you were just assigned to do, and started collecting their stories. And they were also hearing each other's stories as well. So just like what happened with you guys, then there's also one-on-one interviews, and you're talking to each other. But it could also be fun. We've seen it mixed up where it's like children interviewing seniors. In Biddeford, what they did is the seniors most of them were old mill workers. They are formerly mill workers, right? And the thing that the youth loved the most was the ghost stories that a lot of them had. And so they started, a group of high school kids that mostly were like in the drama club and such, they decided they were going to start doing ghost tours through the old mills. These are all empty. Well, they brought new life to the mills, and it was a way of attracting the idea that, we can do something with these, and eventually a museum dedicated to the old mills started in there. So it's amazing what can happen. We've seen it where children as young as 9, 8 are interviewing seniors. And in some ways, these bonds happen because for the seniors, lots of times their grandkids aren't around in where they're living. And for the children, maybe they don't have a grandparent, or they don't have, and suddenly bonds start happening. Just like that little moment with you guys. Sometimes those relationships happen. So, what do we mean when we're saying extract the data? My lovely and talented assistant is going to help me here. And to bribe you, I have chocolate. So, is anybody willing to stand up and tell me and tell everybody what your favorite place was? The answer to the question. There's chocolate in it for you. Come on. Somebody's got to be brave enough. Come on, somebody. Yeah, okay. Awesome. Can you come up here? Because we're having, I know, I'm sorry. Well, we want to make sure that the folks at home can also hear and see. So that's, yeah, why I have a lot of chocolate for you.
I like chocolate.
Yeah, good. Okay.
So I'm not actually from Mayville. I'm from Westfield on down the road.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to see what I can do for Mayville and
Okay.
see what we can do for each other. But one of my favorite places is Two Lakes Studio, and then you've got Webb's, and you've got Boxcar Barney's and the park. And
Okay. Two Lakes, what was it?
Two Lakes Studio.
So, okay.
And Webb's and Boxcar Barney and the park. And
Okay, so
yeah.
what is it about Two Lakes Studio that you love?
oh, the architecture and the art and the owner. She's really nice.
The owner?
Yeah.
The architecture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you love about it?
I don't. You just get a good feel in there.
Yeah?
And it
Yeah?
would be nice to see more of that
Okay.
in Mayville.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? So you'd like to see more of that. How would that just envision it? If you had a magic wand and I said, okay, you can change one thing,
Oh, about the studio?
or just about Mayville in general.
Oh, I'd like to see all the storefronts along that area filled with
Okay.
vibrant stores and people
Okay.
moving around and
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be good for all of us.
All right. First of all, everybody give her a round of applause, right?
Oh, yeah, chocolate.
Chocolate. All right.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. In accordance to the rules on the sign out there, you can't eat it in the auditorium, okay? Okay, so what did we hear? Because you all were listening. Okay, so we were extracting the data. What was it she valued? Come on, sing out, sing out. There's chocolate in it for you. What was it? Okay. Who was saying it? Okay, yeah, here you go. All right, there you go. Okay, so what did she value? She valued the Two Lake Studio and Boxcar Barney. Okay. Why did she like them? What did she say? Why? There was a good feeling. Okay. The people. Okay. Wait, I got to throw some chocolate at you. No. Okay. Okay. What else did you hear? Architecture. That's right. Architecture. So these are all the reasons why she liked that. Okay. Did she have a hope? The storefronts filled. Yep. And vibrant. Yep. Okay. Did you hear any concerns that she had? Obviously that the storefronts were currently empty, right? And she would like to help. Very good. Okay. There's a lot of data that just came out about this, okay? And if you could think about it, maybe there's more than one person that found that. Did anybody else value that, the studio? Raise your hand. Okay, awesome, awesome. That's what happens. You're going to be collecting this data, and you're going to be basically organizing it in such a way so that you can start taking a look at it. Now, one of the other things that's part of this is sharing the stories. And so many wonderful things can happen as a result. Like I said, we've seen community pride increase. What I love about this was also in the North Fork Valley. There was a weaver. Now, she's up there in the upper. And she had been hearing some of these stories and loved them. And some of them were just stories. You know, I was born here, my family raised farm, you know, it was all these different things. She started weaving them into these cloths. And they put them on display in the library. And what they actually went back, for people who were willing to do it, they recorded their story. So you can see the person with her headphones on. She's listening to somebody, but also seeing the artwork, hearing their stories. And at the end, there was an invitation for you to record your own story at the end of it. And what happens is, as people start realizing, you know what? We may have some things that divide us, but we have a lot more that we actually love together. And that's my big question. How do you solve those problems that divide you as a community if you first haven't come together and said, yeah, this is the thing we love. These 5, 8, 7 things, these are the things we love and do no harm to them. And from there, if we know what's so awesome about Mayville, and there is things that are awesome about Mayville, that's where we're going to build. That's how we're going to know what jobs we should be creating. This is how we know that we're going to bring in more tourists. We're going to make it so it's a four-seasoned type of destination. We're going to hear from people that may have seasonal homes here, and you never know. You could hear things like, Cleveland's great, but this is my oasis. This is where I come to escape, and I would love to live here all year round, but this is my challenge. Okay, maybe those are challenges that you can figure out strategies to overcome. So as you can see, you know, the data gets there, you're gonna track it so that okay, I don't know about you, there's something that just drives me crazy, and that is the ones that say, well, you know, everybody knows, or everybody feels that way. Okay, who's everybody? Let me know. You can actually track it and tell you who is everybody, because part of it is tracking those demographics. Yes, in this particular case, we had 317 meetings. We talked to 184 different groups. There were 200 stories and comments. How did it break down from demographics? How did we do our communications? In other words, I mean, and you don't have to do this. This is a nifty way of just putting it all together in a communication, but you're tracking who you're talking to. So you didn't just talk to, 25-year-olds that made, I don't know, $25,000 a year and no one else. You talked to as many people as the team could get to, and you're tracking that. So that when you get that data, it is clean data. You did not lead with an agenda. You did not ask, okay, so what do you think about the such and such proposal that the village council wants to do? That's not the point. The point was, what do you value about Mayville? So there's no agenda to it. Then you can start looking at it and know that it is clean data, and we've even tracked who it's talked to. Maybe not a personal, that Autumn said that. No, it was how many men, how many women, what's the age, what's the breakdown as far as income, education, and so forth, okay? Because don't ever say, well, everybody says that. Who's everybody? Okay, so what do you do with this? Now you've got all this information, and you've got this data, and you've come up with your heart and soul statements, which basically articulate your community's common cause. Okay, now what? And it is, how do we get out there and create action ideas based off of these things, okay? Again, this one is Gardner, Maine, and they had an idea summit, and you can see in the background there was a number of nonprofits, because it was looking at where do these ideas live, who's going to help implement these ideas. And oh, by the way, no, it's not about looking at, all right, let's look at government. Government will do it. Government will have the money. No, because it's us. Remember that slide I showed you where there's all kinds of great plans and they never got implemented? Because who owned them? Probably the people that wanted the plan in the first place, the consultant maybe they hired to produce said plan, and that's about it. Because the public was probably asked to come to a public meeting. Okay, give me your information, your input. Okay, groovy and cool. Wrote up the report. Here's the implementation plan. Where's my check? Great. See ya. Okay. There may have been a great implementation plan, but nobody in the community really owned it, right? Because it's resident talking to resident, and you're getting these ideas, guess who owns it? Who owns it? The residents. Hello. So in Gardner, what they did is they pulled the residents together and started getting all of these ideas out, and they started trying to prioritize them and started looking at, okay, what's easy to implement, what's not going to be so much, what's going to have an issue with funding, what's not. In Gardner, I love it. One of the projects that they came up with, it was Gardeners. What one of the ideas is putting flowers in and around the downtown. So again, it was the general public there that said, well, yeah, we're master gardeners, we could do it. I bet we could talk to some of the seed people, blah, blah, blah. They didn't have to have a government that told them what to do. The people knew what to do, and thus they did it. There was they mainly did Heart and Soul because they were trying to update their municipal or their comprehensive plan, okay? And they sifted through more than 80 ideas, and they prioritized them by high impact or low impact, high, medium, and low feasibility, okay? And they used a grid, and they invited the public to do that. So this is what they, it's like, okay, here's the ideas, and they invited people to come up and they put it where they felt like it was on the grid. So again, this is the public doing this, not a consultant, not your municipal staff. This was the public. As a result, this was their top ideas. Out of those 80s with this 12, okay? But probably those of you who've ever been community organizers know even 12 is a lot of ideas. So they had to even break that down. Well, one of the ideas was concerts in the park. Again, Biddeford had Gardner had a river running through it. And there was a beautiful empty lot, if you will, in downtown Gardner. and everybody was saying, that would be a great place to do concerts, right? Okay, the mayor, who was very positive about Heart and Soul, said, okay, kids, but I'm going to tell you right now, we have no money in the budget currently for street furniture, for benches, for a bandstand, nothing, okay? I don't mean to be a wet blanket here, but we have no money for that. We've already gotten our budget, and we're, living by that budget. So in the audience was somebody from the local Rotary Club, and he said, we're Rotary, and thus I think we're like a civic and service club, and we all like working with power tools in our club, so why don't we build some of these benches? And there was actually, Gardner was big enough that they actually had two Rotary clubs, and they were sort of rivals. One was a noontime and one was a sunrise. And so the sunrise said, okay, you do the benches, we'll do the bandstand. And because is Rotary here in the, so Rotary is made up of business owners. So they're talking to other business owners, figuring out how they can do this, running their fundraisers and so forth. So basically the space became sort of Rotary Park. And the only thing, there was electricians in there was all kinds of people to make this happen. And consequently, the only thing that the city of Gardner actually ended up agreeing to pay for was the actual electric use. So even like the electrical boxes that were put up and so forth, electricians donated their time and materials and so forth. And this is what happened. They had a summer concert series that brought feet on the street, that brought energy to downtown, and as a result, this was check. And we heard from the people this was something that they wanted, and the people helped make it happen, okay? Because who owned it? Thank you. So, in conclusion, and then I'm going to be bringing Autumn up. She's not just here to be my Vanna. I'm going to be her Vanna in a minute. It brings up community interest. You see leadership come up. We've seen youth now have a voice because, again, if you don't talk to the youth, you've created a hidden or missing voice. And I'm going to say something. Oftentimes when you go to the schools, and especially the high school, what happens? They always lead you to, like, the Honor Society kids and the valedictorian and so forth. That's great, but don't create missing and hidden voices even amongst youth. I say this with all due respect. Go to the shop kids, too. That may be the blue collar. They may not be college bound. You know what? Not every kid wants to go to college, and nowadays it's so expensive. They may be trying to find alternatives. And guess what? A lot of those blue-collar, hardworking shop kids are the ones that are going to stay in Mayville and maybe start businesses. So go and talk to them, too. You don't just have to talk to the A students. Talk to the C students as well, because they have a stake in this community as well. So at any rate, in this particular photograph, what I love, this is what they did in Cortez and Golden, Colorado, again, some of our pilot communities. They actually put a position on their city councils that was representative of youth. And it was youth at the high school that voted who should be on there. And in the case of Golden, this wasn't just an ex officio position. They actually had voting rights to it. So this was really youth taking action and becoming leaders. Civic participation. In Gardner, an iconic building very sadly burned. And the Main Street manager says that if it had happened before Heart and Soul, he would not have seen the response that he did. That were property owners, there was about 3 families that were displaced from this fire. That property owners found apartments for free rent for these families until they got on their feet. There was a GoFundMe account that started to help pay for costs that insurance wasn't going to pay. They rallied around this property owner, and they wanted to get this building either, rehabbed, rebuilt, and so forth. They really rallied around this project, and Patrick Wright says it would not have happened before Heart and Soul. But one of the things that people valued, and it came out in the data, was their downtown. And some of it was because of the historic character. And just because your downtown isn't in beautiful shape now does not mean that people don't value it. And relationship building, just like you saw, small demonstration of it here. So let's go back to my story on Biddeford, where last I left you, they were Trash Town, and they started Heart and Soul. And I'm sure it's no surprise. A lot of the data showed people had a concern about the trash incinerator and the smell and the reputation and so forth, okay? What the city council did was a very brave thing. They took many millions out of the general fund because they had the data to feel supportive of this, and eventually they tore that trash incinerator down. And instead, now the downtown that was 70% vacant is now almost 100% occupied, and that's including the upper floors. One of the ideas that came out is they started doing a pitch event. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of those. Yeah, there's a couple. Basically, it's the opportunity for the entrepreneur to come up and pitch their idea. In Biddeford's case, there was a property owner that was willing to give a year's free rent. There was a marketing company and newspapers that were going to give some free space and advertising. Basically, as the poster says, the $20,000 in incentives didn't hurt. Well, this was the winner of the pitch event, and they've done subsequently others. And he came from New York and started a business in Little Biddeford, Maine, mainly because he had heard about the wonderful things that were going on in that community. They were no longer a trash town. They took those mills that were empty, and at one point there was a museum in there, and now there is some beautiful multi-use facilities. They have over 300 new businesses. They have over 1,000 new people working in those businesses, and that is what's helping to revitalize the downtown. But those things were already there. And these were not, it wasn't about trying to bring a new manufacturer in. These were entrepreneurs. You know, 80% of your new jobs are going to come from existing businesses. And you probably have people with grand ideas that what they need to hear is that what their idea is going to work in Mayville. And this is a pedestrian bridge between Biddeford and Saco. And their history has always been it's been just animosity between the two communities. From the days when the mills were around, the mill workers lived in Biddeford, the mill owners lived in Saco. And then when Biddeford became Trash Town, they certainly didn't want anything to do with Biddeford. For the first time, a pedestrian bridge was built on the Kennebec River between the two communities. And they started coming up with a tagline, Biddeford, Saco, Saco, Biddeford, no matter how you say it, two great communities. And that would never have happened before Heart and Soul. So, with that, I'm going to bring up the lovely and talented Autumn Vogel.
Thanks, Leanne.
There you go.
Got these heels on, so I'm going to make this a little higher. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me out. My name's Autumn. I serve as the project coordinator for My Meadville. It's our community heart and soul project in Meadville, Pennsylvania. Meadville. We're in Mayville. I'm from Meadville. That's been the source of confusion today. I'm going to try my best to make the pronunciation clear. Meadville is about 40 minutes south of Erie, right on 79, so similar neck of the woods here, not too far of a drive. And we are a town of 13,000 people, a little bit bigger, but we were lucky enough to become one of the pilot heart and soul communities in Pennsylvania. The Orton Family Foundation partnered with the Pennsylvania Humanities Council to support heart and soul initiatives all across the state, and we were lucky enough to be one of those. We started in 2016, at which point Meadville, there was a lot to be desired. I love it very much. I'm very much in love with Meadville, so I'm not, and especially after this process, I'm not, coming down on Meadville, but things like Leanne was saying were very true, right? This narrative that people were telling, that kind of the feel in the town was just low, maybe sad. A lot of jobs had left. We were the tool city, and we still kind of tout that moniker with pride. We're home to Chautauqua Tools, Accutech Precision Aerospace, and a lot of other machining industry, tool and die shops. But we were not immune to jobs leaving, to plants leaving, and with that, vacancy in our commercial districts, vacancy in our residential districts with people leaving to find new work, vacancy in our downtown because there were suddenly no customers and there was no one to serve to. So that had kind of been the narrative for decades, right? People felt forgotten. People felt that we were, as some of our city officials put it, a sinking ship. It was their job to manage the sinking ship that was Mayville, Pennsylvania. And that's where we were in 2015 when we applied for the grant. And I'm here today in a not naive way because it was not an easy road to haul, but I'm here today to say that I feel confident that we're in a very different place. And I think that Heart and Soul had a lot to do with that. A lot of the things that Leanne mentioned as being kind of central to the work and the mission and the goal of Heart and Soul really played out in Meadville and played out in really strong and meaningful ways that we're really just starting to see now. It's also very helpful to drive an hour away and have to prepare talk to people about it, because otherwise you're living in it and it still feels like there's so much work to be done. But it's nice to reflect and get to share this story with people, to really celebrate the really great work that has happened, and to hopefully share this really great process with another community. So Leanne mentioned the community network analysis and that first phase of that community heart and soul wheel, which is laying the groundwork, just kind of figuring out who's in your community, who makes up Mayville, in our case, who makes up Meadville. So, it was up to us to figure out who's here. We know who's not here, but who is here, and how do we tap into those networks? What do the formal and informal networks in our community look like? And that's something that came out of the community network analysis, kind of devising that very maybe dry-looking but maybe complicated-looking web bubble map that Leanne flashed up there. But that process was really helpful in getting us to think about how are people organizing themselves and where might we be able to find them. So those formal networks being churches and schools and civic organizations that people are a part of, clubs and maybe a bowling league, though maybe that straddles the informal, and those informal networks. So there's a group of moms that maybe, walks the block a couple times a week, or there's a book club that meets pretty regularly, or there's regulars at a certain bar or now a coffee shop. And so the way that we really checked ourselves on are we talking to everybody that we know is here is by measuring the demographic information of the people that we were talking to, the people that we were engaging with at events, through our story gathering, kind of tracking that information and kind of overlaying that with maybe census information. We know that we have, that this is the racial makeup of Meadville, or this is the socioeconomic makeup of Meadville, and what does that look like in comparison to who we're talking about. And so what was really great about mapping out who was in our community and where they gather, and then tracking who we were talking to, it let us make a really intentional effort to get to people who we weren't reaching, to get to those missing and hidden voices that Orton, really kind of compels you to do. Leanne talked about the power of stories, and that was really at the core of this whole process for us, especially being supported by the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. So kind of their big kick was that this is something that's rooted in storytelling. This is maybe community change making or resident-led community planning, but it's really rooted in stories, in gathering stories from people, in sharing those stories out, and in that kind of interpersonal connection that can really happen and blossom when people start to talk to each other and start to hear what you love about Mayville, and maybe it's the same thing that I love about Mayville. And so once we had those stories, I alluded to this a little bit, and Leanne talked about these value statements. So we came up with 9, it then became 8, community value statements that represent what we care about in common about Meadville, what matters most to us about living in Meadville. Ours here are inclusion, health and safety, small town, local economy, nature, education, children and youth, and transportation. Something that's really, I think, one of the most important pieces of this process, and Leanne touched on it, is this idea of activating new community leaders. This sense that, kind of all of us are here and we're all experts of our lived experience here. We know what it's like to live here. We know what it's like to send our kids to school here. And so that means that, when we've got an idea, we know what we're talking about, or when we have a concern, it's a valid one. And this process gave voice to so many people who wouldn't have otherwise had it. This is a picture of our team at the Pennsylvania Association for APA is the acronym. American Planning Association, Pennsylvania chapter. So it's this big annual conference of professional planners in suits who have degrees in planning and know what they're doing. And here comes this ragtag team from Meadville winning an award for a planning process in our community. Never saw it coming, but there's value in this process, in this way of doing things. And what I love I just love showing this picture because I'm proud of the award, but I also love that looking up here, I see our mayor and our city manager, our county planning director, a substance abuse recovery navigator, 2 community organizers, a retired social service worker, a city councilwoman, a young mom, a college professor, an artist, a business owner, and so many other things, because we're all more than one, title. But it's just such an amazing thing that happened that let all of us kind of bring these things to the table to reach a lot of people and to do something really meaningful in our town. And we're still seeing how it plays out. We're embarking on that take action phase and implementing the 32 action items that are in our action plan. Maybe we bit off more than we can chew, but right now we're already seeing really early on some really fantastic outcomes of this project. And so I thank you for being here, and I thank you for considering doing this really special work in Mayville. I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm short. Make that obvious. What else? Anything else? Okay, Sharon, do you want to have a few remarks, like what's the next step? And I know that there's a potluck coming up and so forth, so take it away.
I'd like to thank everybody again for coming, and I hope you're excited about this opportunity. Oh, okay, sorry. The current team is made up of several volunteers, and we have all contributed to cover the costs to date. We would appreciate any contribution you can make, financial and or time, and ideas, any talents. We look forward to your participation and hearing your ideas. Our next event will be a potluck Thursday, March 14th, 5:15 p.m. at the Carlson Community Center at Lakeside Park. So save the date and bring a dish to pass. That's the little card you got when you came in. But I'd like to thank you all and hope you continue to be involved. Thank you.
If anybody has one of these hanging out on their row, sing out, Louise. Okay, perfect.
I just wanted to thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Looking forward to this.
This is our printer, Jess.
Awesome.
I'm going to hopefully chip in that way as much as I can.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Well, and some of the things that we'll do is